Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are Team Star, and my name is Stella. Here is Kevin, Travis, and Harry. It's a great pleasure for us to be here today, and we're happy to offer our suggestions to Vampers. Our strategy has 4 parts. First, the asset and liability actuarial simulation, asset allocation strategy, derivatives overlay strategy, and finally, ESG incorporating. We'll first welcome Kevin to give us the actuarial simulation.
Okay, thank you, Stella. Before designing asset allocation strategy, first let's take a look at the future cash flow so that we can have a clear view of our target and constraint. The cash inflow including investment profits and contribution from active member. The cash outflow including current liability and liability will accrue in the future. And if we choose to issue debt, the future principal and coupon payment will also be a part of cash outflow. We use the information from case and only make one additional assumption to help us simulate the cash flow. We use a function provided in case to calculate contribution of different age and sum them to get the contribution on each year. The contribution cash flow will end in 2052, where all the members will be retiree at that time. A future liability will be written down when receiving contribution. They will distribute on a 25-year range retirement period, and the total liability will roll each year according to that rule. For example, this is a liability shown in 2018 balance sheet. The chart in middle is a liability that should be written down in 2019. The deep green represents older member and light green represents younger member. We combine these two charts together and remove the part that should be paid in current year to get the liability in next year balance sheet. For the principal and coupon payment, because expected return is higher than coupon rate, so we decide to issue debt. And we set a maturity as 10 years to keep assets stable and interest rate low. We use average muni bond yield of Rust Belt states as our bond yield. And to calculate face value, because of negative net cash flow in first 10 years, and we also have a 50% loan to value ratio limit, we calculate face value under a straight return assumption and decided to issue 14.5 billion bond. After simulating all the cash flow, we calculate a minimum average annual return with its corresponding discount rate, which can make and keep Vampers fully funded in the future. The required return is 8.13% with a consideration of transaction cost. The discount rate based on our asset allocation model and actual area return assumption is 7.44%. Then based on discounted liability and funding ratio change, we design a multi-stage investment strategy. First, from 2019 to 2028, because of low solvency and funding ratio, we need a detailed investment, cash flow matching, and risk control strategy. Then in second stage, our targets are to meet payment requirements and reach 105% funding ratio, which have 5% safety margin. Once 105% funded, we don't need a high return like before, so we will tend to de-risk a portfolio and maintain our funding ratio. Next, welcome Travis to talk about asset allocation parts.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. So for asset allocation strategy, actually we choose to use Black-Liederman model. And here's a flow chart. So firstly, we divided big asset classes into detailed subclasses. Then we use risk aversion parameters, covariance matrix, and market capitalization from underlying benchmark indexes, historical data to get the implied return. Then we combined it with the future market views from BlackRock's assumption report and set long-term risk-free rate as 2%. So we get the long-term expected return for each asset. And based on the mirrorized optimization, so we get the efficient surface given a certain risk level or a return level, which can be shown as follows. So our goal is to find the best point on this surface that can meet all requirements we need for each stage. And here's the allocation map for stage 1. So in stage 1, we issue 40.5 billion 10-year bond and set a moderate risk tolerance level that allows 8.13% minimum expected return. Then we construct a trailing stop mechanism using 90% VAR as a trigger to reallocate whole portfolio structure. And we use derivatives to hedge our portfolio from the downside risks. Besides, we assign different weights to fixed income assets with different terms in order to match the first 10-year liabilities. And we'll keep roll this cash flow matching plan later to protect retirees' interests. And in stage 2, our new goal is to restore funding ratio to 105%. So we'll maintain our allocation and use derivatives to protect our portfolio from fluctuations without issuing new bonds. And we'll keep rolling our cash flow matching plan with less stress to take new loans. And at the end of stage 2, we'll reach funding ratio nearly 105%, which gives full safety margin to our portfolio. And in stage 3, our main goal is to de-risk our portfolio. So we transfer from a moderate risk tolerance level to conservative risk tolerance level and use risk parity investment strategy to reallocate whole portfolio within 2 constraints. 1, wait for each asset can't exist bond ranges. 2, the expected return has to be higher than discount rate plus 0.07% in order to guarantee a positive growth. So from the result, we can see we'll transfer 45% of the assets into fixed income and reduce weights of other risky assets. In BLM model, assumption for long-term risk-free rate is very crucial. So based on our sensitivity analysis, we can see that our BLM-based allocation has a very stable performance to maintain 8.13% minimum expected return, which means we can do periodically adjustment to our portfolio using new inputs without any concern. And for risk contribution, even though the total volatility decreased a lot in stage 3, you can see from the chart, but public equity still contributes nearly 50% of the total risk, which means that's why our derivative strategy will majorly focus on hedging the downside risk of the equity markets. So next, welcome Harry for derivative part.
Thanks, Travis. Next, we will introduce flex option. First, it charges 0.65% premium. Then, when monthly S&P 500 positive return is lower than 2.5%, it will double the return, or else it keeps return at 5%. Further, it provides buffer protection. When the losses are lower than 3.5%, it turns the losses to 0, or else it doubles extra losses over 3.5%. However, we still need to limit the downside risks. So, we develop a dynamic option strategy as follows. On the 3rd Friday of each month, we compare VIX with last Friday's VIX. If the VIX increases and the current VIX is larger than or equal to 19, then we buy put option and clear flex option, or else we just hold flex option. Then we execute this strategy and conduct backtest. As we can see, the green line is our strategy, and it's the best during the financial crisis, and it keeps beating S&P 500 and other traditional option strategy after crisis. Further, based on return volatility plot, we can see flex option itself generates the highest return, but also the highest downside risk. But in comparison, our combo strategy increases risk-adjusted returns significantly. Based on such impressive results, we recommend combo strategy to enhance return and protect downside for equity exposure in our portfolio. For next part, let's go on with Stella.
Thank you, Harry. Apart from divestments, there are other ESG strategies available for us to choose. For example, the ESG screening, it would include assets with high ESG scores and exclude those with low ESG scores. The momentum strategy tries to catch a momentum in ESG rating by incorporating assets with increasing ESG scores from the last 12 months and dropping those with decreasing scores. The tilting strategy will give more weights to assets with high ESG scores and lower weights to those with lower ESG scores. Apart from that, ESG risk factors should also be taken into consideration when doing a comprehensive risk management. To become more engaged, members should first enter into dialogues with the companies it invests and use proxy voting to encourage the changes it wanted to say on matters on ESG. Apart from that, it should collaborate more with other investors to broaden its reach and impact. To promote ESG investing, it should first adhere to the 6 principles of UNPRI itself and regularly disclose its ESG progress. It should also communicate more with other peers, such as CalPERS, who has done a really good job in such area, and learn from their experience. So to sum up, I think our strategy has done a very good job to do the social responsible investing, and it does not violate the fiduciary duties it faces. And apart from that, our strategy also restores the funding ratio without cutting any benefits or require any additional contribution. And that's all for our presentation. Thank you very much. We're now open for questions.